6:26 in Trinidad and Tobago. And again, we do apologize for the technical challenges that resulted in our very late start, but we're trying our best to make up for the lost time. And we do appreciate the fact that you are with us on this Wednesday morning for the continuation of our Family Focus series, for which we've been getting quite encouraging responses. Well, this morning we want to put the focus on communication, and communication of any form is vital for everyday living, and more so within the family unit. The reopening of the school, with the new school term, can pose new challenges for parents, as behavioral patterns and attitudes can now change as children return to the school environment. How can parents maintain or perhaps begin to have an effective communication relationship with their children, and indeed, does it differ with age? Well, we are joined now by Hanif Benjamin, clinical therapist, clinical traumatologist. He is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Center for Human Development Group of Companies Limited. He's also, by the way, Chairman of the Children's Authority. Mr. Benjamin, good to see you once again. Thanks very much for joining us.
And Happy New Year to you and all your viewers and listeners around the world.
Indeed, we certainly appreciate your continued contribution to our Family Focus series. And this morning, the issue of communication, and especially communication in relation to children who are members of the family circle. Just give us your overview on that sort of discussion.
Well, the theme for today, as you put it, is Let's Talk. And I found it quite interesting because we don't do a whole lot of that. And parents and adults think that we talk. But you see, what we do, we bawl, we shout, we scream, we look, we stare, but talk, we seldom, happen. And the reason why I'm making that point, because in most instances, the first form of communication with a young person is always one of a shout or a scream. It's hardly a conversation, as you would put it. And for those of you who are not clear as to what is a conversation, you have a sender, receiver, the receiver becomes a sender, and a reciprocal type of arrangement. But what we have is instructions. We have, do this, and we always have it with a level of force. And so what you found happening there is a separation, as it were, with young people moving further to the left and adults, parents moving further to the right. And every time we conduct training, whether it is in a school setting, with parents, community setting, you find that parents are always saying, well, I don't know who they are anymore. I don't know how to reach them. And you have young people saying to us, they don't listen to us, so we don't talk. We'll follow instruction if we have to, but we really have nothing to communicate about because they're not getting us. And more with the advent of technology, we find that communication is now getting less and less, where parents are no longer able to speak to children because children or young people on a whole are now speaking a technological type of language, and a lot of our parents are not there yet. And some, quite frankly, have said they're not going down that road, much to their own detriment. But that is the challenge that we are facing.
And in relation to that challenge, is it a challenge that manifests itself primarily at the adolescent, teenage stage, or is it something that has started even earlier and only becomes a major issue when that sense of independence develops as you get older?
And I'm glad that you brought up that point, because one of the things that is critical for people to understand is child and adolescent development. You see, and you need to understand that children and adolescents develop in phases. Throughout our life, we develop throughout a phase. Erik Erikson spoke about, phases, 8 stages. Freud, everybody spoke about stages. And during those stages, certain things happen. You see? And so when you're a child and you are spoken to, you tend to follow that instruction because, as you rightly pointed out, you have not come to your own sense of self yet. However, when you go into teenage years, adolescent years, you find that that level of communication becomes more toxic because now I can understand what you're saying. I can rebel because I think that I have an opposing view. And not because I am miserable or bad, but because I have formed my own, or beginning to form myself. I'm beginning to understand who I am. And so therefore, I will continue to question. As a matter of fact, the teenage brain encourages that, because the teenage brain is one of risk and excitement and defiance, not in a bad way. It is just that the part of the brain that is responsible for all this good behavior, reasoning, that develop last. That develop at about age 25 going up there. The part of the brain that is responsible for excitement and fun and what we call adolescent defiance or juvenile delinquent behavior, that is in the forefront. And so I often say to parents that you spend about 5 or 7 wasted years with children fighting, as opposed to laying a foundation. Because we think that fighting with your son or daughter to pick up the socks or to wash the dishes or to do the homework, the brain is not designed for that. The brain is designed to relax, chill, have fun, excitement. And so as parent or adult, we need to find a way to tap into that level of excitement and turn it into something positive. But what we do, Fazeer, is that we fight with our young people. And so most of our teenage years are very tumultuous, right, between parents and teenagers, because we are trying to fight against things that are natural. And so what I'm saying to parents, teenage teachers, is to understand adolescent development, understand that this is what the brain is, and find a way to work with what is given. Because those are the years that children are learning the most. You see, those are the years that children are storing in their memory bank that they will use later on in life.
And we're talking primarily at this stage of adolescent, teenage years, that sort of period. But of course, we're going to go deeper into it in a short while as we continue our discussion. And indeed, we appreciate our viewers staying with us despite the challenges we had earlier, so that you can be really following on this very important discussion. But just on the point of the younger levels, the earlier levels, and whether or not you can actually initiate a better relationship, a better dialogue, a true dialogue, because often when we, like in the theme that we're using, let's talk, it usually means from a parental point of view, let you sit down and listen to me. That for many of us adults, that's our idea of let's talk, as in we will tell you what the issue is, and the only time we will let's talk is when we have issues with you. Otherwise, we don't want to hear from you. So I'm just wondering, even before we go deeper into that side of it, how early in a child's development can you properly develop the sort of dialogue that will allow you to create that enriching sort of relationship and environment in the family circle?
Fazeer, from day one, and I'll tell you something, I teach people age-appropriate conversation, because you can have any conversation once you put it in an age-appropriate context. A lot of time parents are going through divorce and difficulty in relationship, and they don't want to have a conversation with the child because they think they are not ready. Sex, sexuality, right, abuse, all of those things can begin to speak from very early in the game. What you need to do is put it age appropriately. The way you speak to a 15-year-old will be very different to the way you speak to a 10, a 7, or 5. Now, Fazeer, what I want people to point out, in the early years, we are of the misconception that everything is cute, and we communicate cuteness. And then at the age of 3-ish, when you go into what do the little people school call preschool, kindergarten and stuff.
Yeah, Montessori and
correct.
That sort of thing,
And the teacher is calling now and saying, we don't understand this behavior. Why is your son or daughter saying these things or doing these things? It's no longer cute. Now you move to a punitive measure now because you start to get embarrassed. You see, for the very things that you were teaching your child and encouraging, you know, the little cuss word here, the little behavior here, oh, she's so cute, or he's so cute. No, You must understand that from day one, you are communicating. The receiver, who is a child going into early, late childhood, adolescent, early and late, they are taking their cues from what they see and what they hear. And I write on this show the last time I made mention of the sponge and how children absorb everything. And so whether or not you meant it, didn't mean it, it will manifest in our children. And so for you, the communication starts from day one, from the way you handle difficulties, from the way you cuss and carry on in the home, from the way you pray and praise the Lord or whatever you believe. All of those things are communication to children. And they are in fact learning from day one.
You know, Mr. Benjamin, I'm hearing you, and I'm in my ear, I'm hearing, I don't know if people remember the Calypso, I think it was by Composer, where he talked about how people talk to children.
Mama chung chung
chung chung kan, chung kulungs, and then on top your ball, you hear what I tell you? I'm going to knock you in your so and so. And then when, as you said quite correctly, when they go into a wider environment and the parents are embarrassed, they behave even more ignorant.
Correct.
Towards the children. So essentially, as we wheel it back, what sort of dialogue? Because many people still hold the view you can't talk to a 1 and 2, 3-year-old properly and all that other thing. Little baby talk is nice, they're so cute and so on. What sort of dialogue should be happening at that level?
But you could learn and you could read. You see, you could read for that child. So you're teaching the child about reading, starting to hear words and understanding that reading is important. You could do all sorts of things with that child. You could actually correct a child in a meaningful way, say this behavior is wrong, because all the behaviors of our children are mimic of what they see. No child, and I'll put it out there, no child will do something that they did not hear and or see. No child will cuss just like that. They didn't get a cuss dictionary.
So when a parent said, you know where they get that from?
It came from somewhere. It's foolishness to think that a child who is 3 years old will just cuss or will behave in a manner or wind down the place. Those are behaviors that they see. And I'm not saying that they're getting it from the parent, but I'm saying in their social environment.
As you said, this sponge absorbed it from somewhere.
And so it is important for you to dispel this behavior, not in a punitive way, because then what you would be doing very early is the Pavlov kind of effect that, okay, you did something wrong that I did not know was wrong, but then I punish you. And so I am now afraid to do anything wrong, or I begin to hide. You notice when children start to hide things, children didn't born with shame and hiding things that they break the toy and they hide it. No, the first time they broke the toy, they got a good cut tail. And as a result of that, the brain is saying to the child, if I break this, it means that mommy or daddy will beat me, so therefore I don't want to get licked, so I will hide. So from very early, we are in fact communicating a dangerous message to our children. And so Fazeer, for young people, for adolescents, for all the span of the age group, we need to be able to have that age-appropriate conversation. We need to be able to explain things to children. And that is another big challenge we have.
How do we, before we move up to that level and the different points that you'd like to raise, if as a parent or a caregiver, we weren't exposed to that sort of enlightened type of upbringing, that we were the victims of the abuse and the ball up and the sort of treatment that made you want to hide everything and more or less be a child in fear.
Correct.
Rather than a child willing to express his or her feelings and ask questions and feel comfortable in doing so in the family circle. If we are now parents, having had those experiences, how do we get out of that and avoid our children falling victim to the same sort of treatment?
It's something I was going to bring up later, but I think it works in well now. And that is called adultism. Right? And adultism simply is a prejudice or a systematic discrimination against young people. And the reason why we have that, and a lot of times it happens without us even knowing that we are discriminating or marginalizing young people. And the reason for that is that our lived experiences, what we grew up with, that is what we take into the next phase of our life. And it takes a conscientious effort to recognize how you felt at that point in your life and figure out, is this a feeling that I want for my son or daughter? You must have introspection about how you felt growing up, when you had no voice, how you felt growing up, when your dreams were killed, how you felt growing up when you were bawled at and say you will sit in that corner and you will hush until you are spoken to, how you felt at that point. And I say this to a lot of parents, go back to that place of 15 years, of 10 years if you can, and think about your child now and whether or not you felt good. And if you felt good, then go ahead. But chances are you would not have felt good at that point. And so at this point now, you must understand that I am being discriminatory or prejudicial against my child. I am pushing my child in a corner. I am being harsh on my child. So now I need to change my behavior.
We'll take a pause as we continue what I suspect is a very intriguing dialogue for many of you are watching and listening on. If you're on the road as well and you're listening intently to the discussion, maybe with the children in the vehicle as well. And who knows, maybe some eyebrows might be raised in the midst of the discussion, because much of this will hit home with many of us, including myself in that regard, as we head towards 6:42 in Trinidad and Tobago. We'll be back right after this. Mr. Benjamin, we're talking Let's Talk, or we're talking about communication, family situations, children, developmental levels. Let's talk about the challenges that children face at their different levels.
And Fazeer, I think that is critical for us because, you know, a lot of us think that children do have, or adolescent, you know, that age range, do have challenges, you see? And so you would hear a lot of caretaker parents talk about, you know, you have problems, the problem is mine, or whatever the case is as from an adult perspective. But that is not true. Young people go through a myriad of challenges from day one. And we need to understand what are those challenges and how it affects young people. Because, again, because we don't talk, we seldom know of the challenges that young people are facing. And so those challenges for you then manifest into two ways, either their emotion or behaviors. And that is what we see. We see a dysregulated behavior or dysregulation of emotion. And so immediately then, that is now cast into a label. You know, your child is a bad child or a delinquent child, not taking into account the why. You know, why is it that the child is behaving in a particular manner? Again, I don't think that children wake up to behave in a particular manner, you know, for all intents and purposes. They behave based on what is in their environment, their close environment and their wider environment. And the close environment could be home, and the wider environment could be school and community. And so you must understand that children have challenges at home and they have challenges in the community. And unless you are speaking to your children about these challenges, you will never know. What you will always see is the end result of the challenge, which is a dysfunction of behavior or emotion. And so you're talking about social toxicity. Children are living in a time, and has always lived in a time, where there's social toxicity. And we're talking about racism, sexism, pressure, peer pressure of all kinds, for substance abuse, for sex and sexual relations. We're talking about, you know, in the social context, you're talking about children being discriminated against. That is where they learn segregation and discrimination right in the school system. When you have to fit in, or you have to now build a crew, or you have to remain alone. Those are difficult and challenging times. When people come to your son or daughter in school and they ridicule for whatever reason, they're not going to come home and tell you unless there is that open communication. What you're going to get is a child slamming the car door, slamming the front door, slamming the bedroom door, and screams, "Leave me alone." Right? But unless you have that open communication where they can tell you about the challenges, and then too, they're embarrassed about the challenges themselves. Nobody's taking the time to explain biological maturation to children. So 1 minute I'm short, then I'm tall, too tall, or too short. 1 minute you stay a little wrong, like I did, you see?
Yeah.
Not everybody end up with six-pack. I had one, and I remained with one. You know, but nobody explained to me that having one pack was a problem. And so you were ridiculed and bullied because of your one pack. I mean, for things that you have no control over. You notice my ears are a little big. I was Dumbo the elephant. You understand? Every day. For my entire primary school, I was Dumbo the elephant.
I was Bugs Bunny for years.
Well, you do resemble Bugs Bunny.
Thank you very much.
Yes. And I mean, I embrace my big ears now. But you see, children go through a lot of challenges. I mean, and I'll say it, you know, for girls, sometimes your breast isn't as big as the other, it remains smaller. And guys, you know, you have growth or no growth or little growth. And so nobody's explaining to children and adolescents that you are going to go through a period of growth and development. Acne, no acne. You know, I remember there was a situation where there was a big bullying situation because a girl stuffed in her bra to imitate a bigger breast. Why would a child have to do that? You see? And the reason for that is because nobody's explaining that children grow differently. And if we explain this to all children, then we could reduce the level of bullying and within the system.
You know, Mr. Benjamin, we don't live in a perfect world. And even in the best of cultures, the best of environments, so we often make reference to the Scandinavian situation, how they have modified their work situation, their social situations to put a lot more emphasis on the development of the child at all levels. Even they would have challenges. So let's bring it back to our situation. We will talk, obviously, I know you want to develop a few more points about the children and understanding the children themselves, but how do we as parents or grandparents or caregivers or uncles or friends or people who should be concerned, how do we, if not maybe separate ourselves is the wrong term, how do we avoid being influenced and shaped by our own experiences and therefore try to develop these same habits that you're talking about, to allow our children to feel comfortable to speak to us without automatically being judgmental, without automatically condemning them? How do we develop those skills?
Again, Fazeer, I go back to the adultism, you know, because it's all about knowing. You see, you must remember your experience. You must remember how you felt. But above that, you must also seek education like what we are doing now. We must educate people that there is something different, that you can in fact do something different to what happened to you, and it can be successful. Too often, Fazeer, we like the stripe. I am the parent. If I have to put on a stripe or tell you every day that I'm the parent, something is wrong. You see? And so we as adults need to say, you know what? I experience X, Y, and Z, and I don't want my child to experience that. I want to, go ahead.
Yeah, but just as you make that point, I have, if you will allow me to intervene, you have discussions sometimes with you and say, well, you see that? It happened to me, and I turn out okay. I don't see no reason to change. Whatever it is, you might say all your fancy dancy, new age dialogue, all you're having. It happened to me. Are you okay? That is the way to bring up my child.
And I get that all the time. Every training that I have about children and adolescents and parents, I get that all the time. And it's, to me, it's an argument that is now null and void. Your time is your time, and my time is my time. And you must recognize that while there were good, bad, and indifferent in your time, the times are very much different. As a matter of fact, 5 years is now almost like a different world.
Yeah.
You see, because of the technological era that we are in, that is moving at probably faster than light now. You see? So the argument that I grew up with that and I get beat and I get licks and I get this is no longer plausible, because the laws have changed, the social status has changed, the understanding of the psychology of the human mind has also changed. And so it is no longer plausible to say I grew up fine, and I challenge anybody to come and tell me they grew up fine. We grew up with fear, because as a child, you didn't behave because you were a good child in the main. You grew up because you were afraid of what would happen if I don't behave. You see? So my thing is this, is almost like animal type of behavior. Why it is we have to beat you to learn, beat you to understand, beat you to conform. That is what we do to animals, because we think that animals don't understand, so we have to inflict some form of pain. Why we must inflict pain? We are teaching children that you must now grow up beating. And then when you grow up and you're beating your wife and you're beating this one and you're beating that one, everybody want to be, oh God, where all this licks coming from? But we taught our children to be violent. We were taught how to be violent, and we continue to pass that baton on to our children. And I am saying to people, if you have to beat me to understand, then you lack the understanding and the ability to transform what you want from me without beating me. And then if that is the case, then something is fundamentally wrong.
So we're heading up towards 7 o'clock, and of course we're going to continue this discussion for another half an hour after 7 o'clock. So we want you to stay with us for all the information that you're going to get, courtesy of Mr. Benjamin. How do we begin to say, well, that same point that people give you this all the time, it happened to me, it will happen to my child, don't tell me nothing. How do we transition from that sort of situation?
Knowledge. We have to plant the seed. We have to begin to tell our parents, our caregivers, that there's an alternative. There are options, and you just need to try it. A lot of times you want to try an option when you reach age 15. No, you have to begin, Fazeer, as you started, from day one. Because I am telling you, parents, we have call-in segment today or no?
I don't think so.
Because I'm almost certain if parents calling and say, well, I have a good relationship with my child, I don't beat my child. Chances are they began talking from day one. They develop a bond, a relationship, a trusting relationship where that child felt safe enough to come and say anything. And I'm certain when that happens, a child is growing up in a healthier, more wholesome environment than one that is filled with fear and anxiety. So first, you parents need to now seek alternative. I think we are in an era of information. And to say that you don't know, to me, it's just pure ignorance. And even if you don't know, the information is always there. And so to not reach to the information is also ignorant. And you know, Fazeer, I keep saying this, the school system, the PTAs and all these places, that is where the information should be given. But then, you know, you have a 1%, PTA, people come to PTA, 1% of the school population, if so much, you see? And so they're not taking the opportunity to come to get the information, to understand that, hey, there is alternative. And this is the big part here, Fazeer. The alternative doesn't mean that you are less of a parent. The alternative doesn't mean that you are less of a teacher. The alternative doesn't mean that you are less of a disciplinarian. It means that you have evolved and you are finding different ways to get things done, to teach your child.
Go ahead, sorry.
And more importantly than that, that is what it is. How do you teach your children? How do you lay the foundation? And we miss the opportunity for you to lay the foundation in lieu of beating and punishment.
We're going to take a break because we have to pause for coming to the top of the hour. But as you made that point about, you know, discipline and so on, we often praise the idea of someone being a strict disciplinarian. You know, that's something that, you know, something we praise. And
there's nothing to praise there.
A strict disciplinarian. And when we think about it as adults now, you say, what are your feelings when you think about somebody who was considered a strict disciplinarian? Was it someone that you have happy feelings about, or was it somebody you feared?
So. Mm-hmm.
Fear has a lot to do with it, you know, because it's
what
very revealing.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to continue our dialogue. We go up towards 7 o'clock, and if it sounds a little chaotic, whether we have a phone session or not, because we've been having many different technical challenges this morning, but we are on air. We started our discussion with Hanif Benjamin, and we hope that you stay with us as we move past the news at the top of the hour, which is coming up right in a little while. And let's move back to our discussion with Hanif Benjamin here in studio. And after a rather chaotic start this morning, I think we're putting some focus on the issues that we wanted to put on the table in our Family Focus segment this morning. Let's talking about the relationship between children in the family circle and the many different challenges that really bring home some real truths to us as adults. Mr. Benjamin, continue your perspective, because you were talking about some of the challenges that children face, and then we want to move into adults, and adults being able to create that environment to facilitate the dialogue. And
so, Fazeer, one of the things I wanted to jump into is really the transitionary period. That is also a period that we don't take we take for granted per se. We don't understand that there is transition between preschool to primary school to secondary school to college. Those are very difficult times. A child who has amassed friends over 7 years in a primary school setting now goes to a new school that is probably 5 times larger than what he or she may have gone to in primary school level, as well as, you know, the friends they would have built, probably about 2% is going with them, if any at all. So parents need to also pay attention to the transitionary period for children. It's frightening. It's a new world, and so parents need to be present. Even the transition from secondary school to college is a very difficult period. I mean, when you interact with first-year college students, whether at the university, wherever it is, you realize that it's a very challenging period. And so we need to pay attention to the transition. We also need to pay attention to the adult things, right? Too much of our children are saddled with the adult things in the home. And sometimes as parents, we don't even think that they are being affected because you think that you're having a private conversation. Rather than try to have a private conversation, have a family meeting. You know, sit down and explain to children what exactly is going on in the family. Because what you are doing, in fact, is creating a false reality for children. And then when the pressure has built up so much, and when you can no longer avoid it, it comes across as something very difficult for the entire family. Especially now in this difficult economic time. We want to be able to put children, sit down and explain to children where we have been saying to a lot of persons who have lost jobs recently in wherever I go to speak, that you need to tell people about expectation and changes in the expectation. Because we don't give children enough credit. We don't give young people enough credit. We think that they can't understand. We think that we need to do everything for them. We think that if we tell them, they'll get back. We don't give young people credit. And so if you break things down in an age-appropriate way and have the conversation with your son or daughter or children, they will understand. And they will be able to follow suit. But if you're hiding it, then a child might perceive that is they are the problem. Because the mommy and daddy don't want to talk to me about it, but we are hearing it happening. And then a child may now perceive that way, this probably is about me. And so you would find children responding to that. Go ahead.
And of course, the environment is very different in the sense that maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago, you didn't have the conversation properly and you didn't really care too much about what is going on out there. But now, because of social media, because of the ease of communication, because the ease of communication with other children who may be a good influence, bad influence, you don't have that discussion at home. You don't have that comfort at home. They'll find it somewhere else.
And that is the thing. Children will, young people, they will find it wherever. And I often say to parents, and parents always look at me and say, your child might smoke weed or might drink, and not my child. No, again, you're living in a world that is not of reality. You're not having conversation about substance abuse, and you think that your son or daughter will somehow, through osmosis, know about it. They will know about it, but from the person who you may not want your child to understand it from. Same thing for sex and sexuality. And that is why I'm saying to parents, rather than hide the fact and try to skim around the facts, deal with it from an age-appropriate point of view. And if you can't do it, then find people who can help you through that to have that conversation. But the conversation would be had.
And as we talk about that, and I don't know if you finished up on the point on the challenges, but you know, equipping parents with those tools, helping them to understand what they can do, given the challenges that they would have faced with their own upbringing. What do they do now?
And so there's a lot of things that we can do, and a lot of things that I want to talk to parents about. The first thing I want to talk about is the one thing that always push young people away, for whether it is conscious or subconscious, and that is how we correct children, right? Some call it feedback. But we like to call it corrective, positive, and or corrective feedback. Some people call it criticism. I don't like the word criticism. I stop using it. I want to give you feedback. And so you need to understand the complexity of a young man or a young woman trying to understand what they did wrong, how to correct it and change it moving forward. We don't do it like that. Homework becomes a war in the home. Because homework is with a belt or a slipper and people balling down the place all evening. That is not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to create positive feedback or corrective feedback. Positive feedback to change a behavior, corrective feedback to change an action, right? And so a lot of times we criticize without giving proper feedback. How am I supposed to learn? And I've often made the point, I am still looking for the man called can do better. Right? Because all through my primary school and secondary school in my report card, Hanif is a great student. He can do better. and I went to the supermarket looking for Mr. Can Do Better. Because how am I supposed to do better if you keep writing he can do better, but nobody's explaining to me what I did wrong or incorrectly and how to change it? So it means then that I am continuing to grow with can do better. And it's the same thing in the family. So I want to talk about positive feedback, where you describe a behavior, emphasizing the strength of the young person and the competencies. And when you talk about corrective feedback, you're talking about behavior offering to change an action. This wasn't done correctly. For example, you did the sum, the work can look good, something wrong with the answer. But you're going to get a punitive response because the answer is incorrectly. Nobody's thinking that from the 3 page of this equation, I had a lot of right points going down there. And somewhere along the line, I needed help. Somewhere along the line, I needed correction, I needed guidance. But we don't provide that. We go straight to the end result. And you get anything wrong, and how much you... No. And so that then leads me to the next point. Well, the first point was corrective and positive feedback.
Right.
You need to be able to tell your child from a corrective standpoint. Don't criticize and leave them hanging in abeyance, because then you would have done more harm than good. And here what you're going to do now, you're going to push the child away from communicating with you about their difficulty in schoolwork.
I get that up to 2 days ago.
You see what I mean?
No, serious. I shouldn't get too personal with it, but one of my daughters are big woman now. And they say, but you always negative.
Yeah.
You're always negative. And I started to pull back and say, you're right, kind of thing. But you're right.
And that is, and I thank you for sharing, because that is also important. We always come at young people from a negative, deficit perspective. We don't ever start on positives. We don't ever start on what you can do good. What are your strengths? We always start from a place of negative and you can't do it, you're wrong, or whatever the case is. And once you change that perspective, half your battles are over, Once you give young people a space to experience life, to make mistakes, and after you make mistakes, you could then guide through positive or corrective feedback and say, well, you know what, this wasn't done, how to do it, and actually show you, demonstrate. That is the next thing as parents we don't do. We don't demonstrate, we don't guide. How do you help teach? I don't know this. Nobody gave me this. You have to demonstrate to me. You have to guide me as to what to do. And if I did it wrong, you need to now come and explain to me, where did I go wrong? But we are so concentrating on the 100%, the end result. Nobody's taking time to ask our child or children, where in the continuum did you fall off the wagon so we could put you back on? That is why it leads me to the next point.
Yes.
Everybody must be 100%. So we see today's papers, everybody, the medals, we looking nice.
Yes.
You understand? We always look at the person who is at 100%. We want you to have excellent, brilliance. So we praise a lot of brilliance. And Carol Dweck spoke about breaking down the difference between brilliance and hard work, effort. If we praise our children for effort, you will find that they will go further. Once we keep praising children for brilliance, we are creating a monster where only the end result will matter.
Just on that point, and I mean, I'm not joining into the politics at all, but in fairness, I mean, with the president's medal thing and whatever, that got a lot of attention. We heard the president of the republic talking about the failings within our system and really bringing up proper citizens in that sense. But we also heard the education minister make a reference saying that, look, we've been browbeaten into almost not wanting to celebrate excellence. And I'd just like to get your reaction to that, in the sense that, is it that we shouldn't be celebrating excellence, or is it that, because some might argue, well, why shouldn't we celebrate excellence? Why shouldn't we have the front page stories and the big news headlines about those who have excelled in our education system? Is there a downside to that?
No, well, there always are pro and con to everything. And I think we should always celebrate excellence. We should always celebrate excellence, but you should celebrate excellence in the context that people have worked hard and people need to move forward. But we must also recognize that the playing field, we must also, and I'm guessing that is where the president is going, we must also recognize that the playing field is not always equal. We must also recognize that there are different learning abilities. We must also recognize that my excellence might be 70. My excellence might just be 70. Because I cannot afford to go to the lessons, or I cannot, in a school that offers me all the extracurricular to balance life. And so we must, when we're celebrating, we must find a wider scope to celebrate. Because if we are to celebrate the 100% only, then we are missing a lot of brilliant people. And you will tell you a lot of the brilliant minds in the world today never started at 100.
In fact, most of the stories, when you hear about the outstanding people, your Steve Jobs and all of them, high school dropouts, get kicked out of school for being delinquent and all that sort of thing.
Fail a number of times.
Yeah. Fail.
And so my thing with excellence is this. We need to look at excellence in a merit way where every child can be judged on their own ability. And so you find that a lot of people, you see the starting line is never equal. We don't all start at the same time. And even if we're running the race, all of us are at a different place in this race. And that is why Carol Dweck spoke about praising children for effort and not so much on brilliance. Now, I don't want people to get me wrong, because people are naturally brilliant, and that is a blessed thing. What I want people to do with those children who are naturally brilliant is to create a playing field where they can also enjoy life, where they can also have social stability. Because what we have sometimes is brilliance and zero social capabilities.
Yep.
And that is not a good mix for a person to come out into society. And so when we talk about all of this, Fazeer, we're talking about how do we get the child who is at 70, like I was, to not give up on my dreams, to almost be finishing a PhD. Because then if I were to go according to that roadmap, I would be nobody. And so we have to be so careful as parents when we talk to our children. What is going on? Where are you having challenges? What can I do to help you to move forward? What can I do to help you to achieve? If 70 is your 100, can we examine why? Why is it that 70? Is it that you have a learning disability? Is it that you're not understanding? Is it that you're not gelling with the teacher? What is going on? Because for me to learn, I have to be able to connect with you.
But what if I tell you, well, Pops, to tell you the truth, I'm not pushing for 100, because I really not all that keen on this, but I'm trying my best, I'm putting my effort and so on. But is 100 always the ultimate? Is it always that 100% is the ultimate?
Well, that is why we do what we do. And that is why, Fazeer, I'll talk now about this month, because normally May, June, everybody
exam period.
But I want to talk about it from now, Fazeer, because the life for many young people, both SCA as well as KIP, has changed dramatically from January 1st. Life as they know it has ended. Because now we're going to lesson from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, right? All play has ceased for our young one, where play is, in fact, very critical for their development. And so parents are now becoming overly anxious. So every time you pass, why are you not studying? Why are you not book? Right? And so the anxiety from January is on. I mean, we have children writing exams in CXC right now.
Yes.
You understand? And so, Fazeer, I'm saying to parents, you have to temper your anxiety. You have to allow children to live. You have to allow children to experience being a child. And once we keep pushing that agenda of this excellence of 100%, because everybody wants to get into the top 100, you see? So we need to say to children, listen, you have a responsibility to study and to do your work, but we will do it in a way that will not jeopardize your own anxiety and your own mental well-being.
And just on that point, I know keep in mind where you want to go to next with the discussion, but just on that point, and even when you have that discussion with a lot of parents, they say, look, I hear what you're saying, all you're saying is perfectly true, but we live in Trinidad and Tobago of 2019, where the school system is what it is, the education system is what it is, and I don't want my child to be a sacrificial lamb for the sake of saying, well, look, I am not going to go into the rat race and so on. I don't have a choice, because if they don't get in the XYZ school, they're going to end up in the wrong company, in the wrong environment. It's going to be challenge after challenge. So I hear what you're saying, Hanif Benjamin. I hear everything you're saying. But really, in the Trinidad and Tobago and the education system that we have today, I don't have a choice but to shut off everything and let this child try and focus on the exams.
And there's nothing wrong with focusing on the exam. But what I'm saying, Fazeer, is you need to create a balance that can allow your child to focus on academia as well as focus on social development. And when one is sacrificed for the other, we have problems later on in life. They come to see me in my office for therapy, right? They have challenges in university. They have challenges in CAPE. Now, you know, many students did exceptionally well at CSEC and just had a nosedive in CAPE. And there's a reason for that, right? Parents don't understand when we put that level of pressure on children, they can only take but so much. And so what we see is a manifestation of mental ill health and all these kind of things, and physical ill health. And what I'm saying to parents are create a balance where a child can still excel. You know, you know what I said to a group of persons the other day? You could learn math and English doing woodwork and mechanic and these things, you know. Everybody think that math and English comes in one form and one form only. You could learn math and English on the football field as well. And so you find that you take away everything. You take away everything. No extracurricular activities. Come here to be in your book 24 hours. That is dangerous to a young mind. A young mind needs a space to breathe, need a space to process, because they are not processing at our speed. They need their own space to do it. And therefore, we need to create service opportunities and support for young people. We need to create services where we are doing things to and for young people. We need to create opportunities so that they could excel. Again, we have a misnomer here that, you know, these extracurricular, or what I call the sparks within young people, are a hindrance to their development. The research is showing all over the world that more schools that have after-school activities and other activities excel. I mean, we have an example right here in our prestigious schools. The more children are exposed to other activities, they use different parts of the brain to process music, different parts of the brain to process drama. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you doing sciences and mechanic. You understand? Because it gives you tactile work to work with your hands to understand brain and hand coordination. There's absolutely nothing wrong, Trinidad and Tobago parents, with your son or daughter doing exceptionally well and continuing to do exceptionally well while playing football every Saturday. But so don't take those things away. What you are in fact doing is reducing the opportunity for a more holistic development.
And why do we, are you seeing any shift towards that more enlightened perspective, or are people still saying that, look, they're wasting time playing football, they're wasting time with all this arts and drama, stupidness and things. Now is the time to really be the books.
I think that it has moved a bit, and I'm seeing where when you have places like UTT that offers and the art program is so subscribed to University of the West Indies, USC, the music program. So it tells me that people, but the question is it that person's put their dream and aspiration on hold, continue the academia in the traditional sense, and then pick it up when they reach a certain age? You see?
You know how much people say that? You know, I mean, I'm sure for many of you out there, a lot of these discussions hitting home real hard, because you know how I sit down and talk to people, big degrees and big job may pay, and there's millionaires, and they say, no, I never got a chance to do what I really wanted to do. But financially, they're comfortable. They have 3 cars in the yard, a Beamer, Audi and everything.
They're
but
not
they say,
living to the truest potential.
I miss out on what I really wanted to do.
I had a family therapy because this young boy, he finished law. He came home, he handed his father his diploma and disappeared. He said, that's yours. That is mine. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do other things. You wanted that, so here. And family disintegrated, prominent family. So now they had to come to rebuild, because again, we are not understanding that it is not synonymous. You cannot not do academia and sport. It is not like that. It can work hand in hand. And parents, the research is showing us that when children are involved in such activities, I call them sparks. What makes them live? What gives them meaning? Because I'll tell you this, Fazeer, for most, or if not high percentage of young people, school is not their spark. School is not their joy, their excitement. So then what excites them? If then for 7 to 10 years that is all they have to do non-stop, and it is not their joy, their spark, their excitement, then what else do they have if you take everything else? Give them something so that at least they can feel a particular way. Just like you as an adult have your joy, your spark, your excitement, they too need it.
Or maybe we should, and this is really the bigger issue, which time wouldn't allow us to develop this now. make the school environment a place that includes those
But
sparks.
that is what should happen, and I want to advise, if I'm so bold enough, the Honorable Minister of Education, that we need to create a school system that is, of course, comparable to all. Not just some school will have all the best activities. Children need it. Put it in all the schools. I keep saying we have these monuments of buildings, right, all over Trinidad and Tobago that are called school compounds that go ghost by 3 p.m. We have a space. Parents are working longer, Minister of Education. So that means parents are coming home 7 and 8 o'clock. We have children home 3 to 7 and 8 without proper supervision. Create an after-school program that I will create it for you. Right? Create an after-school program where we can have an alternative life going on in the evening. Bustle. We can have people coming to learn English and math, parents, adults, children getting involved in activities. We have enough people graduating from UTT and all these people with drama, music, art, all kind of sporting people. Come back, give back. Provide an opportunity in the after-school program where we can get holistic children.
We have to pause because we have a few more minutes left in our discussion, and indeed we'll invite Mr. Benjamin just to sum up his thoughts on, or indeed give us some prescriptives in the midst of our discussion as we talk about talking to children in the family circle and indeed making it a productive and enlightening experience rather than just getting buff up all the time. We'll be back right after this. Beyond, well, we're heading into the final few minutes of our discussion with Hanif Benjamin, President and Chief Executive Officer, Clinical Therapist and Clinical Traumatologist at the Center for Human Development Group of Companies Limited. He's also the chairman of the Children's Authority, and indeed was referenced by the Commissioner of Prisons yesterday with the relationship that the prisons are having with the Children's Authority and facilitating dialogue and assisting in that regard. Maybe we could develop that point at another time, but in the few minutes that we have left, Mr. Benjamin, what final bits of advice, what final prescriptives would you like to give us?
Two things I want to just focus on: the opportunities, creating opportunities for young people. They don't create opportunities themselves. We as the adults need to create opportunities, whether that opportunity is that of professional, personal. We need to create it so that the young people will have something to do. As I've often said, young people want to do something. The question is either good or bad. Either we create a positive opportunity or someone else will create a negative opportunity. Either way, they're going to find something to do. But more importantly, for your support. We need to support our young people. We need to support their learning. We need to understand their learning style very early. And so we need to help them develop that understanding. We cannot buff them, shout at them, scream at them because they are not getting it. We as the adult need to find out why they're not getting it and create a support system so that they can get it. You see? And so once we do that, you will find that the 70% will now keep moving up, right, because we have figured out why they're not getting it.
And while you're continuing, I should mention that because of our chaotic start, we have some additional time. So we have a few more minutes, so continue to develop your points.
Good. Right? So I want parents to begin to understand that support in terms of learning. Right? For too long, we have made learning a punitive thing. You don't do your homework, teacher don't ask why you get licks, right? Or you get buff up or whatever the case is. You come home to do homework is a challenge. We make learning a chore when learning is supposed to be natural. That is how the brain was developed. You see? And so I want parents to begin to understand. Now, if you are working with your child very early in the game in terms of learning, you will pick up if something is wrong. You shouldn't wait till you reach 16 and 17. Chances are because of a behavioral challenge to recognize that the behavioral challenge was caused because of a lack of ability to learn. You see? Too many of our students who are living with some form of mental illness or disability go unrecognized for a long time. And of course, because of who they are, it is now manifested into a behavioral challenge. You see? And because, of course, remember I told you that the brain don't know how to process that yet. They just know behavior and emotion. And so parents need to be working with their children in terms of learning. You need to know if they are fast learner, slow learner. You need to understand if they're max at 70 or they could go to 110. Because if a child is going to 110 and sitting down in a class with a 70 or 60, you'll realize that there are challenges. I remember I could give a quick example. Sure. A child was brought to us for treatment because the teacher said that this child is out of the mind, they're miserable. The child needed a new class. The child finished, they're working 10 minutes when the class takes an hour. And so for the other 50 minutes, the child is bouncing from pillar to post. Yes, the child had ADHD, but at the same time, the child was operating at a superior level in terms of learning and understanding. So the child was boxed into this class that was not conducive to his learning. And so the recommendation is either you move up or you find a school that can challenge what the child has. And just as I'm saying a person might be 70, I am saying a person might be 100, 120. And we need to cater for that as well. And that is why we cater for all children on the spectrum. You see?
And indeed, you know, and because I'm sure I would have mentioned this before in other discussion, you talk about, isn't it about a system that allows the teacher to understand the child a bit better and not just have this template. If you don't hit 70%, if you don't hit 85%, you're stupid, you're dunce, all that kind of thing. You need extra lessons to understand that there might be other issues that could have the child not really maximizing his or her potential.
Correct, and parents do that. They go to extra lessons. And if I can understand 1 and 1 equals 2 for 8 hours during the day, chances I may not understand 1 and 1 is 2 for the next 2 hours in the evening or on Saturday unless somebody is able to break it down. Because sometimes you tell me 1 and 1 is 2, but you need to probably tell me that 1 is a number. You understand? So it goes far beyond. But we are so caught up in test results that we are not taking time to understand the human side of the child. And a lot of teachers will say, well, we have a lot of challenges. It's 30 children in a class. And I'm saying, if you come to school every day and you just observe your children without any extra effort, you will know. You will know that something is wrong. And once you know that it is now not because something is wrong, because they're miserable, something is going on, and then you could then refer them to get the proper help that they need. Even though sometimes teachers are spot on and they call mom or dad in, but mom and dad then don't want to accept the fact that something might be wrong, because the first thing mom or dad saying, oh, this is my fault, and they start to blame. It's not about blaming. It's about there's a situation and we need to fix it. You see? And so sometimes parents don't want to take that understanding, and so the child is left to fend for their own self with this level of whatever it is. And I'm saying, so we need to support. We need to support risk. We don't allow children to take risk, reasonable risk. And so when
I'm glad you made the distinction, reasonable risk.
Correct.
Some will say there's dangerous risk.
Correct, and I guess some people are very literal, so I have to break it down.
Sure.
Reasonable risk. With your guidance. You see, for too often and for too long, we have done everything for. We are of the opinion that young people cannot fend for themselves. And then it comes a point at the age of 18, oh, you're a big man now, go do your do, you're a big woman. But all the time, for 18 years, you have done for me. You need to allow young people to take the risk, right? Be with you in the kitchen, go to work with you, understand life, so that they can then assess risk as an adult and be able to mitigate it. Too often as young adults, we are not able to manage risk. That is why we have so many challenges. And so they're helping them to develop risk from young, positive risk. And there are such things because the mind of an adolescent is about risk-taking. The mind of an adolescent is about excitement. So you need to allow the excitement, and that excitement can be positive things. But again, Fazeer, because we come from that negative place, we go down in that place. We need to be able to provide that emotional support for young people. We need to allow them to develop emotions, right?
And we still have some time to develop some of the points that you want to raise. But just on that point, how difficult is it for a parent to pull away from this habit? As you said correctly, with handing the diploma to the parent, that is yours, that is mine. How difficult is it for a parent to pull away from saying, I wasn't able to achieve this, I wanted to be a doctor, but X, Y, Z, and he going to be a doctor whether he like it or not. Or when I was playing cricket and thing, the selectors didn't like me, I was from the wrong area. Well, you know what? He going to play for the West Indies whether he like it or not. How difficult is it for a parent to not force their child to fulfill the dreams that they wanted to have fulfilled for themselves?
It's very difficult. And that is why, as a matter of fact, that is one of the greatest contention in families, that where children have to pick subjects and children have to move on to tertiary. That is a major contention. Because
your grandfather was a doctor, yes, I was a doctor, you could be a doctor too.
And as you pointed out before, I never got an opportunity, so you will take every opportunity. And so we try to live vicariously through our children. You live your life, calm down. Let me live mine. Guide me, give me options, work it out with me, but don't tell me that this is what you will do. You understand what I'm saying? And a lot of parents, again, because we don't talk with our children, we don't allow that level of dialogue. So it's, you will do this, you will go to school, and you are miserable for 4 years. It have people who deliberately fail and drop out of school. Not because they can't do the work, but this is not what they want to do, right? And so a lot of this change for you must happen with parents, again, understanding that young people have a voice.
Are we winning that battle? From your dialogue, from your interactions with groups, with individuals, are we seeing people awaken to that understanding?
Yes, I'm seeing the movement. We have a long way to go, but I am happy about the movement. That is why I say every opportunity I get, I will speak about it, because we need to bring it to the ear of our parents and our caregivers. Give young people a voice. And as a matter of fact, I do so much work with young people when they say to me their number one problem is, we have no voice. And the thing is, when you feel like you're clamping a voice on the left, they are expressing themselves on the other side. And so from day one, you need to allow your child or children to develop a voice, however, with responsibility. You understand? Just don't develop a voice, but you need to teach them responsibility. That's the next thing, Fazeer. Everybody think that responsibility is a book was given at birth. So you need to be responsible. And I am like, okay, so how does one become responsible? Right? When I see you every Monday and Friday, you stay home from work. How does one become responsible when I see you smoking weed or drinking alcohol because you're stressed? You see, we have to teach our young people what is a responsibility. You understand? Again, you have to give them responsibility in chores. I'm not saying for them to become a parent, but you need to give them chores and teach them how to be responsible. I am here doing the dishes, you're next to me. I'm walking with you so that there comes a time when I can let you go forward responsibly. You see, so the responsibility is on us to help them develop this voice and to use it in a productive and right manner. But we don't do that. We cram their voice and we hope and pray that they develop responsibility somewhere along the line. We need to be strategic. Bringing children into this world and developing their milestones and having them grow is a task. And we leave it to chance. We think that because we go to work, we provide shelter, food, and stuff like that, that everything is good, that you have done your job. No, that is your responsibility. Your job now as a parent or caregiver is to develop this young person into someone who you could release into society and say, I am pleased and I am proud. But we don't do that. We don't spend the time to teach a child about the world. We don't allow our child to have their distinctiveness of culture. We don't allow them to get involved into the challenges of today. So we rob them that opportunity. And then come 18, we want them to be the super saver, the best employee. We want them to do these things. No. We must be able to provide strategies for development. Just like if you're a boss and you have to develop your employees because you want the best product, so too must you develop your child or children so that they will be the best product. And that development is not just leaving them alone and thinking, well, I provide a roof and I provide. No, you have to actually work with them. Just like how you go to trainings and meetings. That is what you need to have in your household as well.
And it's not just about handing them the express practice test or the guardian practice test or whatever.
Goodness,
and then when the result, how much you get? 100%? Why you ain't get 100%?
And that is it. No, sit with me, help me develop, help me to understand. And so the topic of let's talk is so critical because we need to begin to talk to our children. We need to understand them. We need to understand the milestones that they are in. We need to understand the challenges, right? You need to know that from 11 to 13, it's a change, right? 1 minute you come in and your voice hard the next morning, 1 minute you're short and then you talk. We need to help them to understand this. We need to walk with them.
And we have just a few seconds left, and I'm happy that we were able to extend the time just a little bit, but just in the 60 seconds that we have left, your final words for
My final word is parents need to become parents. You are not just a provider, but you are a parent, and in that, you are providing guidance and growth and development. Understand your children. Understand their pain, their joy, their successes. Create opportunities for them. And above all, Fazeer, above all, love.
And I'm told we still have some more time.
What? I like this.
You like this segment? It's more chaotic than usual. So we do have a couple more minutes. And,
yes. I can tell you about love.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, Fazeer, we don't understand the power of love. We don't understand. A lot of time parents think that they need to work triply hard to buy you the nice shirt, the nice clothes. Those are facades. Young people, when you work with them, they want you, they could be living in a shoebox. If you could tell them you love them, you could listen to them, you could hug them, they will excel beyond boundaries. Just by that thing called love. We are so caught up in our own life that we forget to say I love you. We forget to tell our children we love them. We forget to show them that we love them. I always give the challenge, you leave in the morning before your child get up, leave a note in the lunch kit, leave a note on the pillow, leave a note on the mirror. I love you, have a blessed day. You know, we need to continue to build love because again, Fazeer, if we teach our children love, compassion, empathy, that is what they will go to school and do. But if we show them hate and bitterness and confusion and chaos, that is what they will do. And then when they do it, you punish them for doing it.
And just if I may be allowed to add to that, you know, you talk about the importance of love, but also understanding in the sense that, as I referenced the practice test, that it's not always about 100%. It could be, as you said, 70%, 68%, but it could also be a lovely bit of artwork that you just created or some fantastic thing that you did creatively. That really is the area that you want to flower in the direction.
And you know, I'll probably mention this. We did some work with St. Stephen's College in Princeton with Miss Sargent, the principal, doing a wonderful job there. And that is one of the things she brought us in to help develop in the school. Because the school, the students are academic, they're doing well, but they need a social development. We need to tap into their other resources. And I remember it had this one girl who really could not communicate. Right? But when she did a piece of artwork for the program, it was out, she spoke 1,000 words.
A picture paints 1,000 words.
That is what she did, and everybody was so shocked. And what was even more breathtaking in that is when she was able to present her piece and talk about her piece, and everybody was like, she spoke. But she spoke about what she loved. And it didn't mean that she was bad at her academic work, you know. It meant that she needed grounding. It meant that we gave her a voice that was different and allowed her to express herself through her art.
And we're happy that we had the extra time for you to express yourself, Mr. Benjamin. Thanks very much once again for taking the time to join us this morning for our Family Focus segment. And indeed, it might have been a chaotic start this morning, or you're wondering even for a while if we would have our segment. And certainly from my own understanding of it, it's turned out to be a quite informative segment. And we hope that you see benefit in these sorts of dialogues that we have on a Wednesday morning. We'll take a break and come back for our final interview segment this morning.